Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling those folks who really know how to push our buttons.
Yes.
Difficult people.
They're everywhere.
We're using this book by Jon Bloch, Handling Difficult People, as our guide.
It's a good one.
And we're going beyond just labeling and complaining about them.
Right.
We're going to try to understand the psychology behind these behaviors.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And hopefully by the end you'll have some strategies.
Oh, for sure, for dealing with them.
So let's just jump right in.
Let's do it.
The first personality type that Bloch talks about is the big bully.
Yeah, everyone's met one.
He kicks things off with this kind of startling statistic. 1 out of 4 children will be bullied before reaching adulthood.
Wow. It's a lot more than you'd think.
And it's not something that people just grow out of, right?
Oh, not always.
This dynamic can continue on into workplaces, family friendships.
That's what he says.
So what's going on in the mind of a big bully?
Well, even as adults, they're often driven by this deep-seated insecurity, unhappiness.
They kind of overcompensate by exerting power over other people.
That's it.
So how do we handle them? Should we always confront them head on?
Well, actually, no. Sometimes the best strategy is to just minimize contact.
Okay.
Keep things brief and professional.
Avoid giving them ammunition.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about situations where you can't avoid them?
Yeah, like a big bully boss.
Or a big bully relative.
Right.
So Bloch talks about some pretty creative strategies for those situations.
It does.
Like using humor to confront them.
I like that one.
In a way that highlights their insecurities.
Yeah, to make them uncomfortable.
So that's a little risky, isn't it?
It can be.
But he also talks about this blind date strategy for social situations.
What is that?
Basically, he's saying, imagine you're trapped in a conversation with a big bully at a family gathering.
Okay.
You have a friend call you at a prearranged time with some kind of made-up emergency.
Oh, that's a good idea.
As an escape route.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So moving on to another personality type.
Okay.
The big mouths.
Oh, yeah, the chatterboxes.
Those people who just love to hear themselves talk and really dominate conversations.
It can be exhausting.
Bloch points out that these folks are often driven by a fear of silence.
I can see that.
And insecurity about not being liked or understood.
Yeah, they just have to fill the space.
So how do we handle them?
He suggests politely but firmly interrupting them.
Okay.
To give other people a chance to speak.
Okay. Any other tips?
Well, he also recommends using humor.
Okay.
Maybe a lighthearted comment like, wow, you could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles.
I love that.
I've used that one.
Okay, so we've tackled the bullies and the chatterboxes now. Let's talk about the brick walls.
Oh, those are tough.
The people who absolutely refuse to listen or even acknowledge other points of view.
It's so frustrating.
It's like talking to a brick wall.
That's a good way to put it.
No matter how much evidence you present.
They won't budge.
Bloch actually gives a great example.
Oh, yeah.
2 people are talking about John Wayne. One guy insists that he was a war hero, and when the other person tries to correct him, the guy just doubles down.
Well,
he's like, well, all I know is that he was a great war hero.
Classic.
And that just perfectly illustrates that, well, all I know is attitude.
They shut down the conversation.
They operate in this black and white world.
Makes sense.
New information just threatens them.
They cling to their convictions.
Yeah.
Even if it's wrong.
So how do we even handle them?
Well, Bloch suggests sometimes the best approach is just accepting that they are immovable. And you just got to focus your energy on people who are open to dialogue.
Tough, but true.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of these behaviors, it seems like they come from this place of insecurity.
Yeah, that's the thing that connects them.
Yeah.
I think that's why Bloch's approach is so helpful.
Yeah.
Because once you understand the motivations driving these behaviors, it gives you more compassion and you can find better ways of coping.
Right, so instead of trying to change them, you focus on managing your own reactions.
And setting boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to our next personality type, the constant complainer.
Ugh, I know a few of those.
The folks who always see the glass as half empty and never miss a chance to voice their grievances.
It's draining to be around them.
Bloch makes a funny observation about this type.
What's that?
He says they often criticize negativity in other people.
Oh, the irony.
But they're incredibly negative themselves.
That's so true.
He explains that complaining can become a learned behavior.
Like a habit.
A way for them to seek attention validation or even try to exert a little control in their lives.
I can see that.
So how do we handle these perpetual grumps?
He has a kind of a counterintuitive tactic.
What's that?
He says agree with them.
Really?
And even exaggerate their complaints.
Oh, my God.
To the point where they get uncomfortable and back down.
You're telling me to fight fire with fire.
Kind of, yeah.
So if someone's complaining about the temperature in the office, you'd say something like, You're right, this office is a nightmare. I'm surprised we haven't all gotten pneumonia.
Exactly.
Okay, I love it.
You got to try it sometime.
All right, so are you ready for some drama?
Oh, always.
Okay, let's talk about the drama queens.
The masters of making a mountain out of a molehill.
Bloch describes them as people who thrive on chaos.
Yeah.
Turning minor inconveniences into major crises.
Oh, yeah.
You know, constantly starring in their own personal soap opera.
It's all about them.
So what's going on beneath the surface with these drama queens?
Well, he says it often comes from this deep-seated insecurity and a thirst for attention.
Oh, okay.
It's like they need that drama to fill some kind of void.
So how do we handle them?
Well, he recommends first you focus on praising them when they're not being dramatic.
Okay.
You know, reward good behavior.
Okay.
And then also respond to their outbursts with humor
Okay, I like that.
to encourage them to see things in perspective.
So if our drama queen friend calls and is panicking about spilling coffee on her blouse, you might say something like, "Oh no, not the blouse. This is a fashion emergency. We need to call in the style police."
That's good.
So 5 down and 5 to go in our lineup of difficult people.
We're making progress.
You know, it seems like a lot of these behaviors really stem from this deep-seated fear of not being good enough.
It's a common thread.
Yeah, and instead of getting frustrated with them, we can try to understand where they're coming from.
And respond with compassion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Get ready for some intellectual sparring.
Oh, no.
Because we're talking about the know-it-alls.
I know so many of these people.
They're everywhere.
Always have to be right. Always have to correct everyone.
And they always have the facts.
It's like they can't stand the thought of someone else being the expert.
Yeah, they have to be the smartest person in the room.
So Bloch explains that they're often driven by a need to prove their intelligence.
Right.
They may have felt inadequate or overlooked.
Early in life, maybe.
So they overcompensate by asserting their dominance.
That makes sense. So how do we handle them?
He has a couple of interesting strategies.
Okay.
One is agree with them.
On what?
On small points. To disarm their need to constantly disagree.
So give them a taste of victory. I don't know if I like that one.
It's worth a try.
What's the other one?
Use humor.
Okay.
To deflect their corrections.
So like if someone's correcting your pronunciation at a dinner party, you could say something like, "Oh, thanks for the language lesson. My brain is feeling so stimulated right now."
Exactly.
I love it.
It's lighthearted.
Okay, so what's next?
Let's talk about the masters of delay.
Oh.
The procrastinators.
The procrastinators.
Yeah.
Bloch makes this really funny observation.
Right, is it?
He says they can turn the simplest tasks into lifelong projects.
They're really good at that.
So what's the psychology behind this?
Well, he says it often stems from perfectionism.
Oh, okay.
And a fear of failure.
So they put things off?
Because they're afraid of not doing it perfectly.
Yeah. So how do we help these procrastinators get unstuck?
He suggests breaking down tasks into smaller steps.
Okay.
So they don't feel overwhelmed.
So they can see the finish line.
Yeah.
Okay. What's next?
Be prepared to be slightly annoyed.
Why?
Because we're talking about the Snooty Snobs.
Oh, gosh. I can already feel myself getting annoyed.
They're classic.
The people who use their perceived superiority to make others feel inferior.
Right.
Whether it's their taste or their knowledge or their social status.
It's all about status with them.
Bloch explains that they're often masking deep insecurity.
Really?
With this veneer of arrogance.
So they try to validate themselves by putting others down.
He gives this great example.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
A guy is asked if he watches a certain TV show, and he replies, "No, I only watch PBS."
Oh, I can hear the snobbery.
It's not what he said, it's how he said it.
With that disdain.
Like anyone with different tastes was beneath him.
Classic Snooty Snob.
So how do we handle these self-appointed arbiters of taste?
Well, Bloch actually suggests a more compassionate approach.
Okay.
He says, disarm them.
Oh.
By showing genuine interest in their opinions.
Okay.
So if your friend is going on and on about their latest culinary adventure, ask them about the specific dishes, what they liked, what they disliked.
Okay, so let them feel heard.
Exactly.
Okay, 8 down, 2 to go.
We're almost there.
Get ready to duck for cover.
Why?
Because next up are the Tantrum Types.
Oh, the ones who resort to outbursts and anger?
Emotional manipulation to get their way.
Like a toddler.
It's like they're perpetually channeling their inner 2-year-old.
It can be scary.
Bloch describes this as having a remarkable ability to hold the world hostage to their emotional volatility.
Wow. That's a good way to put it.
But he points out that while some temper tantrums might be rooted in genuine emotional dysregulation, sometimes it's a learned behavior.
A way to control others.
So how do we stand our ground when someone's throwing a tantrum?
He recommends responding calmly but firmly.
Easier said than done.
It is.
So set clear limits, don't give in to their demands.
Yeah, that's key.
Practical tips?
If possible, remove yourself from the situation.
Oh, okay.
If you can't maintain a calm demeanor.
So just weather the storm?
Exactly.
And once they've calmed down, then you can address the situation.
Right.
Okay, so final personality type.
This is it.
We've reached the final boss.
Bring it on.
The two faces.
Oh, the masters of manipulation.
They thrive on drama, and they're constantly playing both sides of every conflict.
Yeah, it's exhausting to be around them.
Bloch says they're masters of deception, always work in some angle.
Yeah, always whispering secrets.
Just stirring the pot.
It's all about the drama.
But what's interesting is he says they often operate from this deep fear of rejection.
Really?
They think that agreeing with everyone
is the way to maintain relationships.
So they're so afraid of being disliked that they end up being dishonest and manipulative.
It's ironic.
He shares this perfect anecdote.
Tell me.
About a coworker who would come to him, complain about another colleague, saying all these awful things.
Yeah.
Then he'd go to that same colleague and repeat everything, but with a different spin.
Oh, my God.
And make it seem like Bloch was the one starting the drama.
That is so manipulative.
It's a classic two-faced behavior. So how do we protect ourselves from these social manipulators?
He says, pay attention to how they interact with others.
Okay.
They're often overly eager to please.
Okay.
Showering people with compliments, agreeing with everything.
But there's this lack of genuineness.
Yeah.
So what else should we watch out for?
Pay attention to how they talk about others.
Okay.
They're often masters of gossip.
So if they're bad-mouthing other people to you?
Yeah, they're probably doing the same about you.
So how do we handle them?
Bloch recommends setting clear boundaries.
Okay.
Make it clear that you won't participate in gossip.
Right.
Or negativity. And refuse to be drawn into their manipulative games.
Draw a line in the sand.
Exactly.
So if they're not willing to change, you might need to distance yourself.
Sometimes that's the only way.
Okay. So 10 down.
We did.
We've explored all the personality types from handling difficult people.
That was a lot.
It's been really eye-opening. I feel much more equipped now.
I agree.
To navigate these tricky interpersonal dynamics.
It's so helpful to understand these patterns.
What are some of the key things you've learned?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me is that almost all of these difficult behaviors, they stem from some kind of underlying insecurity or fear.
Yeah.
And we can't control how other people behave.
Right.
But we can choose how we respond.
That's a good point.
And that's what I think makes Bloch's book so valuable. He gives us practical tools for setting boundaries, communicating effectively, disarming these personalities with humor, compassion, assertiveness.
Okay. So what does this all mean for our own lives and relationships?
Well, I think the first step is cultivating self-awareness.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been guilty of exhibiting some of these traits at times.
Oh, for sure.
The more self-aware we are, the more we can recognize those patterns in ourselves.
Okay.
And choose to respond in a more skillful and compassionate way.
So self-awareness is key. What else can we do?
Well, we can practice those strategies that Bloch outlines,
like
setting boundaries, communicating our needs clearly, responding to difficult behavior with humor, compassion, and detachment.
It's like we're learning a new language.
The language of healthy communication.
So the more we practice,
the more fluent we become.
Yeah.
And the better our relationships will be.
Well, this has been fantastic.
I agree.
I'm walking away with a renewed sense of hope and empowerment.
Me too.
So keep practicing those communication skills and keep embracing the messiness of being human.
That's great advice.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into handling difficult people.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and helpful.
See you next time.
Yeah, it's funny how much we can learn about ourselves when we study these so-called difficult people.
I know. It's like holding up a mirror.
To our own, little quirks and vulnerabilities.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of drama, let's talk about those temper tantrum types.
Oh, boy.
The folks who react to even the slightest little thing with a burst of anger or frustration.
Yeah, it's like they never grew out of that toddler phase.
Right. Bloch makes a really interesting point about this.
What's that?
He says, while these temper tantrums can be a sign of, genuine emotional dysregulation,
right,
they can also be a learned behavior.
Oh, really?
A way to control others.
So they figure out that if they throw a fit,
they get what they want.
And it keeps working.
Right. And so it becomes this kind of self-perpetuating cycle.
So what do you do?
Well, that's where setting boundaries comes in.
Right. You have to show them that it's not going to work.
Exactly. You have to refuse to reward those outbursts. Okay, but how do you stay calm, right, when someone is like screaming in your face?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Well, Bloch actually has some really good advice for those situations.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He says, if at all possible, try to remove yourself from this situation.
Oh, just get out of there.
Yeah, even just taking a few steps back
need some space.
Can really help to de-escalate things.
Makes sense.
But what if you can't physically remove yourself?
Oh, like if it's your boss.
Right. Or maybe it's a family member and you're kind of stuck in a situation.
Yeah, that's tricky.
In those cases, he says, you really have to maintain this incredibly calm and neutral demeanor.
Oh, that's hard.
It is really difficult.
Especially when they're going off the rails.
Exactly. You don't argue, you don't plead, you don't try to reason with them.
Because it's not going to work.
It's like trying to reason with a hurricane.
That's a good analogy.
So you just kind of have to weather the storm.
Just wait it out.
Exactly. And then once things have calmed down a little bit,
then you can try to address the situation in a more constructive way.
Right.
Bloch suggests offering, practical solutions to their problems.
Oh, okay.
Maybe even encouraging them to seek professional help.
If it's that bad.
Right. It's about recognizing that these tantrums might be a sign of a deeper need
for support.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
So let's move on to the last personality type on Bloch's list.
Okay, bring it on.
The Two-Faces.
Those are scary.
I know they can be incredibly difficult to deal with.
Because you never know what their true intentions are.
Right, they thrive on this kind of drama and manipulation.
And they always seem to be playing both sides.
Against the middle.
It's exhausting.
It's like they're social chameleons, always changing their colors.
Oh, yeah, to fit in with whoever they're with.
Bloch explains that this behavior often stems from a really deep fear of rejection.
Interesting.
So they think that agreeing with everyone
is the way to be liked.
Is the key to maintaining relationships.
But that's not how it works.
No, it's not.
It backfires.
It does. And so they're so afraid of being disliked that they actually end up being, dishonest and manipulative.
Yeah, they create the drama they're trying to avoid.
Bloch tells this perfect anecdote.
Oh, I love a good anecdote.
About a coworker who would complain to him about another colleague saying all these terrible things.
Oh, no.
Then he would go to that other colleague.
No way.
And repeat everything.
Really?
But he would spin it.
Oof.
To make it look like Bloch was the one stirring up trouble.
That's so sneaky.
It's classic two-faced behavior. So how do we protect ourselves?
Yeah. How do you even spot these people?
With her, he says pay close attention to how they interact with other people.
Okay.
Often they're overly eager to please.
Oh, yeah. They want everyone to like them.
They'll shower people with compliments. They'll agree with everything.
But it's not genuine.
No, it's not. It's like this kind of calculated charm.
Nick.
So what else should we look out for?
Well, pay attention to how they talk about other people. They tend to be masters of gossip.
Oh, so if they're bad-mouthing other people to you...
They're probably doing the same about you.
Right. It's all about sowing those seeds of discord.
And creating mistrust.
Exactly.
So how do we deal with them?
Well, Bloch recommends setting those really clear boundaries.
Oh, okay.
You make it very clear that you're not going to participate in gossip.
No drama.
No negativity.
And don't let them manipulate you.
You have to refuse to be drawn into their game.
It's like drawing a line in the sand and saying, I'm not playing.
And if they're not willing to change,
what?
Then you may need to distance yourself.
Sometimes that's the best thing.
Sometimes that's the only way to protect your own sanity.
It's about self-preservation.
It is. And so we've now covered all 10.
We did it.
Of those difficult personality types that Bloch outlines in his book.
That was a lot.
It was. But it's been a really fascinating journey, don't you think?
I agree.
I think we've uncovered some really valuable insights about human behavior.
I think so, too.
But before we wrap things up,
okay,
I would love to hear your thoughts on what we've learned and how we can actually apply these insights to our own lives.
Well, for me, the biggest takeaway is that we all have the potential to be difficult.
At times.
Yes. We all have our own insecurities and fears.
Yeah, it's true.
And vulnerabilities that can sometimes show up in ways that are tough for other people to deal with.
So we need to have a little compassion.
For ourselves and for others.
I think that's so important.
I agree.
And the other big takeaway for me is that even though we can't control how other people behave, we can choose how we respond.
You always have a choice.
We can't change those difficult people, but we can change how we interact with them.
And how we protect ourselves.
Exactly.
From their negativity.
And how we manage our own reactions.
Right. It's about taking back your power.
Yes.
And not letting them dictate your happiness.
And I think Bloch's book gives us some really great tools for doing just that.
He does.
He gives us strategies for setting boundaries.
For communicating effectively.
For disarming those difficult people.
With humor.
With compassion.
With assertiveness.
It's like he's giving us this roadmap for navigating these really tricky interpersonal dynamics.
A survival guide.
A survival guide.
For the real world.
So tell me, what has this deep dive into handling difficult people done for you?
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
What kinds of things?
Well, just recognizing that these patterns of behavior are so common. And that there are things we can do to manage these interactions.
We don't have to feel powerless.
Exactly.
It's been really helpful for me, too.
I'm glad.
And I hope it's given our listeners some food for thought as well.
Me too, because we all have those difficult people in our lives.
We do.
It's unavoidable.
At work, at home, in our social circles.
They're everywhere.
And, these interactions can leave us feeling drained and frustrated.
Yeah, they can really suck the energy out of you.
But I think what Bloch is trying to teach us is that we don't have to let these people control our emotions.
Great.
Or dictate our happiness.
We have choice.
We do. We have the power to choose how we respond, and we have the tools to create those healthier and more fulfilling relationships.
And that's empowering.
So that wraps up this part of our deep dive into handling difficult people.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, we've really gone deep, haven't we?
Hey, Anne.
Into this whole world of handling difficult people.
It's a jungle out there.
It really is. From big bullies to two-faces, we've covered so much ground.
So many personalities.
As we wrap things up, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you're walking away with?
Well, one thing that really sticks with me is that almost all of this difficult behavior, it really comes down to some kind of insecurity or fear. Like, think about those big bullies, right?
Yeah.
They try to put other people down to compensate for their own feelings of inadequacy.
Right.
Or the big mouths. They just keep talking and talking because they can't handle the silence.
Because it makes them feel vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like all of these behaviors, they're just defense mechanisms, ways of coping with these uncomfortable emotions or threats.
Yeah. So instead of judging these people or getting caught up in their drama, maybe we can try to see them with a little bit more compassion.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean we have to condone their behavior.
Of course not.
But we can just approach those situations with a bit more empathy and understanding.
I think that's so important.
What else is striking you as we've gone through all this?
Well, another big takeaway for me is that we can't control other people.
Right.
You can't make someone change.
No.
But we can choose how we respond to them.
We always have a choice.
We can't change those difficult people.
Nope.
But we can change how we interact with them.
How we protect ourselves from their negativity.
And how we manage our own reactions.
That's really empowering when you think about it.
It is.
It's about taking back our power.
Yeah.
And not letting them dictate our happiness.
And I think that's what Bloch is trying to teach us with all those strategies.
Yeah, the strategies are great.
Setting boundaries.
Communicating clearly.
Yeah.
Disarming those difficult people with humor.
And compassion.
He's giving us this roadmap.
I like that, a roadmap.
For how to navigate those really tricky interpersonal situations.
And for staying grounded.
Right.
When things get tough.
So what does all this mean for our everyday lives?
Well, for me, the biggest thing is self-awareness.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right?
Oh, yeah.
We've all been the big bully or the brick wall or the drama queen at some point.
We're all human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more self-aware we are, the better we're going to be at recognizing those patterns in ourselves.
And making different choices.
Yeah.
So once we've got that self-awareness down.
Yeah, with them.
Then we can start putting those strategies into practice.
Right. The boundaries, the communication, the humor.
Yeah.
The compassion.
It's like we're learning a new language.
It is a new language.
Language of healthy communication.
And the more we practice,
the better we get at it.
And the more fulfilling our relationships will be.
This has been so insightful.
I agree.
I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new toolkit for dealing with those difficult people.
Me too.
I feel much more confident and empowered.
It's a good feeling.
Well, this has been fantastic.
It has.
I really appreciate you diving deep with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this journey.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Keep practicing those communication skills and keep embracing the messy beauty of being human. We'll see you next time.